The small human female rotated the metal cap with a slow metal-on-metal scrape. The sound was loud inside the subterranean bunker. General Jaxa stood at the central tactical dais, his calcified armor plates gleaming beneath the harsh lights as he demanded unconditional capitulation from the small girl. 6 bioengineered shock troopers stepped from the shadows behind him, their massive limbs twitching. The lead soldier lunged forward, his high-frequency blade humming as it cleared its sheath. Clara Vance did not drop her stance. She did not raise her voice. Would you have moved, or would you have stayed perfectly still? Because she didn't even drop her stance. Stay close. 14 minutes earlier, the command room had been perfectly quiet. Subcommander Vrelk adjusted the security logging console, inputting the coordinates for the mineral sectors. His chest plates adjusted with a dull click as he processed the incoming data. The Alliance had spent years logging resource zones, and this bunker was designed to handle any administrative threat. The door hummed open, and the human delegation stepped inside. It was not what Vrelk expected. An elderly human male walked with slow steps, his gray suit slightly oversized. Behind him came Clara, carrying nothing but a battered black steel container covered in tiny scratches. General Jaxa did not offer a seat. He leaned his heavy hands on the obsidian table, his voice registering as a deep rumble that vibrated through the floorboards. He laid the documents flat. The terms required the human outposts to leave the sector within 3 rotations. The old human did not reach for the papers. He adjusted his spectacles, looked at the planetary display, and shook his head. He spoke softly, stating that the charter guaranteed those sectors and that his people had no desire for an escalation. Jaxa sneered, his mandibles flaring in open contempt. He stated that desire was irrelevant to the weak. He gestured to the master at arms, and the heavy pneumatic blast doors locked down with a sharp hiss. The automated ceiling turrets hummed as they active, their lenses glowing red as they scanned the room. Jaxa called the old man a scribe and ordered his guards to seize him for the capitulation logs. The 6 guards advanced, their heavy boots clicking against the polished tile. They ignored Clara entirely, treating her slight frame as an administrative error. Clara walked to the edge of the obsidian table. She set her black container down with a soft, distinct clink that cut through the sound of the approaching boots. She stepped directly into the path of the lead soldier. The giant lunged, reaching out with an armored hand to sweep her aside. Clara did not swing a weapon. She dropped her center of gravity exactly 20 centimeters, slipping beneath his wide reach. She caught his massive wrist with both hands. She rotated her torso, utilizing his own heavy forward momentum against him. A sharp fracture echoed through the sealed room. The soldier's balance broke completely. Before his mass could hit the tile, Clara drove the hard base of her steel container straight up into his lower jaw nerve cluster. The 300-kilogram trooper went rigid. His eyes rolled back, and his body crashed down like falling timber. He lay completely still. Vrelk tried to input an emergency command, but his fingers froze over the panel. His chest plates rattled like dry leaves. The master-at-arms yelled to clear the asset, his skin shifting to an aggressive red pigment. The remaining 5 guards drew their kinetic blades in unison. They did not rush inward blindly. They formed a tight defensive circle around the table, their blades creating a wall of high-frequency energy. They had lost their structural certainty. They recognized that the small biped was a calculated countermeasure. Clara stood over the fallen guard, her breathing flat and even. Her face showed no anger. The second guard thrust his blade in a low arc meant to disable her legs. Clara stepped inside the strike, using the side of her black container to deflect the flat of his blade. The deflection was precise. The guard's weapon slid directly into the arm plates of the 3rd soldier behind her, short-circuiting his kinetic armor with a burst of white sparks. Clara spun on her heel. She drove her boot into the 2nd guard's knee lateral, breaking his structural support in a single impact. The 2 remaining troopers rushed her from both sides. Clara vaulted onto the glass terminal console, her light weight barely registering on the sensors. She dropped low as a blade sliced through the air where her torso had been. She grabbed the edge of the terminal, swung her legs out, and kicked both soldiers squarely in their chest seals. The force broke their seals, releasing their bioengineered adrenaline into the air with a sharp hiss. They stumbled backward, their weapons clattering against the obsidian bedrock. Clara dropped from the console onto the Master-at-Arms station. Master-at-Arms Thran tried to pull his sidearm, but Clara drove the edge of her steel container into his neural junction. He slumped over his console, his skin cycling through dull shades of gray before losing color entirely. Clara's fingers immediately flew across his open terminal. She punched a quick sequence into the master override lock, bypassing the secondary firewalls within seconds. The automated ceiling turrets whirred, clicked, and broke their original tracking patterns. The turrets swung away from the human delegation. They locked their heavy barrels directly onto General Jaxer's forehead. The red alignment lasers painted a perfect circle between his calcified armor plates. No warning had been issued. No weapons had been drawn by the delegation. No options remained for the command staff. The 6 elite guards were completely incapacitated on the floor, groaning from broken joints, but remaining alive. The room became perfectly silent, except for the high-frequency whine of the warming plasma turrets. General Jaxer stood entirely still, his massive frame rigid under the targeting beams. His hands remained flat on the table, but his fingers twitched against the stone. Clara did not look at him with triumph. She looked down at her sleeve, noticed a small smudge of blue fluid, and wiped it away with a slow, deliberate rub. She stepped down from the terminal station and walked toward the general's personal desk. She reached out and picked up a decorative silver pitcher filled with steaming water. She unscrewed the top of her container, poured the hot water inside to replenish her brew, and looked straight into the warlord's eyes. She ordered him to bring her coffee. Her voice was flat and heavy, carrying an absolute authority that matched the targeting lasers above. She added that he must make sure it was hot this time, because the admiral disliked cold beverages when he was signing peace treaties. General Jaxer's massive hand shook as he reached for the black canister on his personal sideboard. The supreme warlord of the sector was completely broken without a single human ordnance being detonated. He filled her container with slow, careful movements, keeping his head low beneath the turrets. The old human male watched from the table, calmly straightening his spectacles as he loaded the original treaty files back onto his slate. An encrypted transmission chimed on Vrelk's terminal, arriving directly from Central Command. The data packet contained the corrected files for the human administrative party. The old man was not a scribe. He was Grand Admiral Marcus Vance, the fleet commander who had broken the Outer Rim blockades. The girl was his primary close protection asset, carrying a classified tactical rating that the sector database immediately translated as 12. The system automatically updated humanity's strategic index across 20 sectors. Clara took the filled container from the general's hand. She nodded once in polite thanks, took a small sip, and walked back to her seat beside the admiral. The red targeting lasers stayed locked on Jaxer's forehead as the old man pushed the papers forward for signature. The general did not hesitate this time. He pressed his biometric seal onto the document with a trembling palm, sealing the resource lines over to the Alliance. Strength that chooses gentleness is not weakness. It is simply the final line of an unwritten treaty.